on TikTok. Nope, not TikTok today, but Twitch and Twitter. I don't know why I keep always saying TikTok. I went live on TikTok once, and you should follow me there at the Eddie McCabe. I am live, so there's a chat if you're following along on Twitch. I believe you can interact. There also might be a function on Periscope as well, which is the application used to go live on Twitter. You can follow me at the Eddie McCabe on all forms of social media: TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all the fun stuff. And thank you for tuning in. I'm so glad to have you. I go live. I try to go live twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday in the noontime hour. Today we're going live on Wednesday because the real life the way. Basically, I had to do some stuff with a company, some live streamings for some corporate training and stuff like that. If you want to hear a little bit more about that, head on over to the YouTube page. I did a more of a vlog style stuff about, some of the other stuff I have going on, and you can check that out there in a more polished vlog episode, and hopefully I'll be able to do more of those in the near future. So today I figured it would be a good time to catch up on some news that I care about. Hopefully you do too if you follow any of my nonsense. Basically, I wanted to start first with WandaVision episode 3 dropped last Wednesday. I am such a huge fan of this show. I absolutely love it. I think that they're doing a fantastic job at adapting the Marvel Cinematic Universe to television, right? Because that's basically what the streaming service is just a television network that you kind of get on demand. And they're doing a fantastic job of slow rolling this story, keeping it very intriguing while also being very, very entertaining. Now, if you haven't watched episodes 1 and 2, go over to the YouTube channel, check out my review there. This will be up later, and you can kind of watch this too. I'm not going to talk about spoilers as it pertains to WandaVision, just because, we're sitting here up top, and, if you're going to want to listen, but I do want to just recommend it to everybody. As the show progresses and moves into different sitcom eras, it's very, very interesting to watch them be able to adapt the show from like a visual standpoint, as well as keep the mystery alive as to what's going on. It's extremely intriguing. It's so much fun. And there are so many Easter eggs if you're a very big comic book person or even just an MCU person. There's references galore, and it's a ton of fun to check out, and I highly, highly recommend it. So go check that out. That's on Disney Plus. Now, in other Disney-related news, there were 2 big parks announcements that came out this week that I think I just want to kind of give my thoughts on a little bit more. The first is that Blizzard Beach is going to be reopening in March, which is really exciting. I think as this pandemic kind of rages on and we try to kind of get to the tail end of it, right, where the vaccine is getting rolled out, we're trying our best to get as many people vaccinated as possible so that we can kind of return to a normal way of life, right? And the more that Disney kind of announces these types of things, the more excited I am that we're going to be able to get back to normal, right? Now, Blizzard Beach, I only went there once, but it is one of the 2 Walt Disney World water parks, right? That being Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon. I've never been to Typhoon Lagoon, and now with Bill and Danny down there, hopefully I'll be able to make that a more poppin' vacation spot, and we can, go there more often. Anyway, Blizzard Beach is very fun. It's if a ski resort, basically happened to, like, a mountain in Orlando got a bunch of snow, and this alligator opened a ski resort. Well, it's Orlando, so everything started melting, and now it's a water park. It's extremely fun as far as water parks go. I'm not a huge water park guy. The closest one to me is this one called Water Country, and it's awful. My biggest issue with water parks has to be that you get wet, right? Like, you go down the water slide, you hit the pool, and it's yay, awesome, and it's really fun. But when you're in, like, July or something, you then have to get out of the water to then go stand in line at the next water slide. And when you're standing in line at the next water slide, you're freezing. And it really defeats the purpose of like trying to like cool off in a hot summer sun. It's kind of in the same way that I always felt about sprinklers, right? And maybe this is just me, but growing up, we had like the kiddie pool that was like a foot and a half, and you could go swimming in that. Or we would attach the hose to the sprinkler, and the sprinkler would, come up and go back, and come up and go back, and you just run through the sprinkler. And I always found that to be the same thing, where it's just like, oh, this is really refreshing for like 30 seconds. It's like really refreshing for like 30 seconds, and then I'm right back being hot, or, I got too wet and now I'm cold, and so that's one thing that always kind of bugged me about, water parks. But Blizzard Beach does a great job of adding that Disney theming to a water park so that you're enjoying yourself more, right? And there's a lot more like pool-esque activities, I guess would be the best way to describe that. And having pool-esque activities. Now, my co-host or former co-host or however you want to talk about it on the New Age Insiders, Jason Maltov, he hates water parks. And I always found it so funny because it's one of those things that it never really dawned on me until he started saying it, and then was like, oh, you're 100% right, and now I'm really grossed out about it. And it's the fact that it's just like everybody peed in the pool, everybody pees in the pool, and you're just like swimming in people's pee, and it's just like, oh, man, I'd like to think that everybody has their own, like manners, I guess would be the right word, and that they wouldn't do that, but here we are, and people are terrible, as seen by 2021, or 2020, the musical. But, yeah, man, he's so right, and it just always stuck with me, and now I don't ever want to go to a water park ever again. So, there's that. But, now, in slightly other related news, now that I've completely ruined water parks and downplayed the announcement of the grand opening of, reopening of Blizzard Beach, Festival of the Lion King is coming back. Festival of the Lion King is one of the larger shows at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And again, this is another step in how people, yes, peeing is poggers. I don't even know what that means, if I'm being absolutely honest. I know it's an internet thing, but, I'm old, I guess. That's how that works. But the Festival of the Lion King is returning, which again is another step forward into that kind of normalcy or normalcy. Whatever. But, that step to being normal. And it's really great that we're just kind of hopefully getting over this hump. I know that the infection is coming and the like super crazy UK disease version of Corona is here, and it's more deadly and contagious and all that stuff. But I'm hoping that that's a little bit of an overreaction to the underreaction that Corona Prime happened, and so hopefully with something like the Festival of the Lion King kind of being reworked to being a little bit more socially distant and, the allowing people back in there, these parks will be a little bit more full, right? Which isn't necessarily a good thing, I guess, because if you wanted to go, you'd rather have no lines than you would having, a ton of lines. But having the Festival of the Lion King return brings a lot of life, energy, and work back to the Disney parks that has been missing over the last several months. Since they started laying off people, since they started, basically downsizing everything and kind of eliminating these workers, it's good to be able to see these people return. Hopefully this now means that with stuff like, Frozen sing-along happening at the Hollywood studios, something similar to the Beauty and the Beast live on stage or the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, hopefully those things can kind of start to return and more people can kind of get their jobs back. I think that that's probably the saddest part about all this is that you have these performers that, for lack of a better term, are not qualified for anything else, right? If you spend your entire life working as a performer, as an entertainer, and trying to achieve that kind of level of excellence in your field, it would be the same as being a plumber or an electrician and working really, really hard being a master electrician or a master plumber. And then all of a sudden people being like, yeah, you got to do something else. And it's like, well, I spent 10, 15 years, learning this skill and honing this craft and trying to get myself into the type of like mental and physical shape to be able to execute this on a night in and night out basis. And now you're just telling me like, yeah, I guess you got to go, work at a grocery store because you got to do something else. And that's probably the saddest part. But, it offers a spark of hope, right? It offers a spark of hope that when these parks open up a little bit more and, we kind of return to that normalcy, that these performers that are so talented are going to be returning back to the parks. And it's going to be great for guests. And it's going to be great for, the people that actually held these jobs before. Speaking of performers that are very, very crucial to their attraction, Jungle Cruise, the world famous Jungle Cruise, had a very surprise announcement. I hadn't heard anything about this until it was announced earlier this week that the world famous Jungle Cruise will be receiving a major update. Now, this is an opening day attraction at Disneyland and Disney World, and both rides are going to be getting a major overhaul, which is super duper exciting because I absolutely love the Jungle Cruise. Obviously the Jungle Cruise is very subjective to, one, your sense of humor, and two, who your skipper is, right? If you have an amazing skipper, you're going to have an amazing time on the Jungle Cruise. If your skipper is pretty good, it's not going to be as good, right? Because the jokes, the delivery, their interplay with guests is just so crucial to that, that ride and that attraction. Now, a little bit of history on the Jungle Cruise. It was an opening day attraction, and originally Walt Disney wanted the Jungle Cruise to have live animals, but the problem is that the animals wouldn't be able to perform on cue, right? Like, he couldn't actually have a rhino trying to, put his horn up somebody's butt as they climb up a tree. So having animatronic animals made all the more sense. Now, over the years, it has become very, very apparent just how dated the ride is, specifically when it comes to stuff about the headhunters, right? Culturally insensitive, I think, is the word that I would, like to use. And it just kind of, has run its course, right? It's from a different time, and it's time to move on from that. And, it's Disney World and Disneyland aren't museums, right? They have to roll and change with the times. And while, again, the skippers with the Jungle Cruise have done a fantastic job of, making light of the situation, downplaying the racial overtones, and making it more family friendly, they're still there, right? Those animatronics are still physically there. So having them be overhauled and updated, as well as updating, I'm assuming, the animatronics, is going to be huge, right? You look at something like the Stuntronic that's going to be coming to the Avengers campus, right? And I don't know if it was officially announced, but we all kind of know that it's going to be Spider-Man swinging through the air, and he's going to be able to do flips and stuff on command, and that's going to be awesome. But these animatronics have been so great and have moved forward in such amazing technology that these animatronics are really outdated, right? Plus, especially in Disney World, not so much in Disneyland, but in Disney World, with Animal Kingdom being right down the street and being able to go on an actual safari and see real animals, it kind of loses its shine, right? And so I think it's in for a much needed update and overhaul. I'm really glad that they aren't deciding to retheme it to something absolutely insane, like, oh, this is now going to be a Tarzan ride, because I think that would lose a little bit of its majesty. And it's a conversation for multiple people and, not just me. But I do think that part of Disney World and Disneyland need to have more IP that is existing in the parks, right? While it's wonderful to have things like Princess and the Frog coming and have Frozen Ever After and, have different IPs represented all over all the parks all over the world, having specific park IP is also important. Having the Haunted Mansion, having the Jungle Cruise, having Space Mountain, having those type of things are important. So I'm really glad that they're kind of going with the overhaul and like update or opposed to just a retheme, and then it also kind of comes side by side with the release of the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie, right? They have a Jungle Cruise movie coming out in July, in theory. I'm knock on wood, but they're gonna have that movie come out in July, and having the synergy between that movie and that movie's story is going to be very similar to what we saw with Captain Jack Sparrow getting introduced into the Pirates of the Caribbean, right? You had the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, it inspired the movie, and then the movie inspired the ride, right? A little bit of an Inception-y kind of deal, but, I don't think we're going to get a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson animatronic, although that would be very fun. I think that we could all agree that that would be really fun, but I'd rather see him in a mummy attraction as the Scorpion King, because he'd be spooky and cool, but I digress. I don't think we're going to get a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson animatronic on the Jungle Cruise. That being said, I like what the video on Disney Parks blog, right? The Disney Parks, official website, what they ended up saying was that the skipper would be telling more of a story, right? It's going to be a little bit more cohesive, and they're going to have an actual story that kind of, comes around all of it. And that's really exciting. To kind of have an updated story that is consistent and not just these kind of one-off jokes with like, oh, we're in the elephant pool. Oh, it's so good because they all have their trunks on. Ho, 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 ho. And look, do I die laughing every single time that I hear that joke? Yes, I do. It's very outdated, freaking-lutely. So, it'll be nice to kind of have like a personal touch, right? Hopefully these cast members, because they're just so smart, witty, very good at improv, they're going to be able to, adapt this story and make it personal still, while still telling an overall arching story. And I think that that's really exciting. I'm really excited to see that, and I'm really excited to see what this new update is going to entail. Again, I hope that it's going to have new animatronics, and I hope that it's going to be, something very exciting that's more than just, these single overlays that we see, right, with like the Jingle Cruise. So, we'll see. We'll see when that comes. I didn't see an official, rehash date as when that's going to go down for refurbishment, but, I would assume that it's going to be very soon, because that movie comes out in July, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge undertaking, right? It doesn't seem like they're going to have to drain everything and install a ton of new animatronics. So it might just be like a 2-month refurbishment. Hopefully that's the case, but only time will tell. In other streaming and other related news, something that you might care about, something you might not care about, but something that I'm a little bit known for and I've talked to people about over the years is pro wrestling. And this Sunday is one of the big 4 pay-per-views for WWE, and that is the Royal Rumble. Probably the biggest casual fan pay-per-view. When you see people that were ever like into pro wrestling at one point, they all still like the Royal Rumble. They might not necessarily be into WrestleMania or SummerSlam. King of the Ring isn't a pay-per-view anymore, and Survivor Series isn't what it once was. But those 3 right there are the biggest of the 3 for even casual fans to kind of like check back in, right? And the Royal Rumble being probably the biggest of them, because it's exciting. You get a mix of the new guys, the old guys, you get matches, and then you get the Royal Rumble, which is just a chaotic, fun, exciting experience. And that's this Sunday. And so I'm going to pull this up. I realized that I did not pull up the Royal Rumble card before I was going to talk about the Royal Rumble, which is absolutely silly. Silly, silly, silly of me. But it is this Sunday, and I'm really excited. One of the things that I'm probably the most excited about, and I guess I'll talk about right off the bat, is the WWE Championship match between Goldberg and Drew McIntyre. Now, Goldberg, Drew McIntyre, I absolutely love Bill Goldberg. Obviously, if you've ever followed the New Age Insiders before, you would know just how much of a fan that my co-host was, whatever. I mean, yes, it's technically still is. He didn't die, but he absolutely loves Bill Goldberg. Bill Goldberg became a little bit of a friend of the show. I was able to go down and see him at his Hall of Fame induction, and it was like, it was a ton of fun. It was great. It was absolutely, absolutely fantastic to watch my friend have so much enjoyment from a guy that I really enjoy. I've always liked Bill Goldberg. I mean, obviously not as much. I don't think it's quite possible to ever like somebody as much as that man does. But I really like Bill Goldberg. I'm excited that he's kind of the break glass in case of like big star that WWE has, right? They have him come out and kind of fill this role that people like The Undertaker used to fill, Shawn Michaels used to fill. It used to be like, oh man, like, Drew McIntyre really needs to prove himself and he needs to beat a legend. And so now that legend is Goldberg. That's kind of the guy that they dust off. Now, that can talk about, we can kind of get into, and this is a topic for another show, but WWE has done a poor job of building everybody from that like attitude era into the beginning of Ruthless Aggression, and from that Ruthless Aggression like era to now. They haven't really done anything. They haven't done enough to build any credible stars, because the only people that kind of came out of there are Randy Orton, John Cena, Edge, right? And Edge, he's kind of more of an attitude guy. Edge and Christian, the tag team, the TLC match, that's kind of where he made his bones, and then took his solo career from there, even though most of that was in the Ruthless Aggression era. But John Cena we don't talk about anymore. Randy Orton's still here. And everybody else kind of came and went, right? There's no big stars that you're like, oh man, I can't wait to see so-and-so. Kurt Angle, we've done that, we've been there, we've done that. He's, he can't go anymore, and, that's sad for him, but he's not really here. Umaga is unfortunately passed away, and there's far more guys that kind of came and went and never were really a thing. Chris Masters, these are guys that I'm not going to just name guys off the top of my head. So bringing somebody like Bill Goldberg in gives you that old star power that they just don't have anymore, because whether they decide not to use John Cena, whether they decide not to use, people like John Cena or, Kurt Angle or Triple H, and it's very interesting that this is the kind of guy that they rely on. And, you look at everybody that was kind of on the Legends, Raw, and it's like none of those guys are really exciting, right? Not in the way that you would want them to be exciting. And we kind of use Brock Lesnar more than enough. I think we've all had our fill of Brock Lesnar, and to be fair, Goldberg is dipping into that territory. Now, I'm going to say something very controversial when it comes to this. I think that Goldberg's going to win this match. I think that Goldberg is going to beat Drew McIntyre. They don't dust off Bill Goldberg to lose. It's just like not in the first go round. He doesn't come in and lose, right? He comes in and he wins, and then he ends up putting somebody else over. And the big thing that everybody kind of alluded to, and the big thing that everybody kind of wanted to point finger at was a couple weeks ago when he stared down Roman Reigns, and it was like, oh, are we going to finally get that WrestleMania match that we thought we were going to get? Is that what we were going to do? Is that what we're moving towards? And my answer is yes. Yes, we are. But we've talked about unification matches for forever, right? And I think that this is finally the seeds of the story that finally makes sense. You have the WWE, you have the WWE Championship, you have the Universal Championship, and you have this roster, and you're in this very weird place where you have these two different shows. And these two different shows are in the same building, and you just don't have enough oomph on either show to really fill up all 5 hours. 5 hours of content. I had to do math live on the air there. But, I don't think that we don't have enough talent to fill out that, and so we're going to start meshing this back together, because for majority of the country, we can't have live events, right? And as somebody who works in live events, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, at least in this area, New York, Massachusetts, like the whole Northeast area, until the fall at least. And so New Japan recently unified their Intercontinental and IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And I think WWE is going to kind of do the same, right? We're going to get that marquee matchup between Goldberg and Reigns that we didn't get last year. And instead, we're going to get Roman Reigns versus Goldberg in a unification match. It feels like a huge WrestleMania match, and it just feels big, important. There's names, there's championships, there's banners. And while it sucks for Drew McIntyre, I do think that he's kind of the odd man out here, right? So I believe, basically, based on this, Roman Reigns beats Kevin Owens and Goldberg beats Drew McIntyre. Now, the only thing I don't know is which one of those men. I'm going to guess that Roman Reigns wins the Royal Rumble, just because he's the bad guy, right? In this ultimate story, he's the head of the table, and he's the bad guy. So having one of the Usos be the third man, or not the third man, fun. Instead, he's the 30th man in the Royal Rumble. I think that Roman Reigns comes out and takes his spot and wins. Or Jimmy or Jay wins and then, basically gives the title match to Roman Reigns, right? I think that that's how the men's Royal Rumble match plays out. And ultimately, it leads to Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. Just one man's opinion. That's how I think it goes down. The more Spark Note streamlined version of that is, I'm going to think that Goldberg beats Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns beats Kevin Owens, and then Roman Reigns ends up with the number one contender shot for Goldberg at WrestleMania. And I think that that's how we get to a unification match at WrestleMania 36. Right, that's what it is, 36. So, on the women's side, the Women's Battle Royal, look, I'm not going to tell you that I know anything about female anatomy and biology and all those fun things, right? But I think that Becky Lynch wins the Royal Rumble for the women. I know that she already had the baby. Now, whether or not she has the ability to have the baby and now come into the match, she's going to be 30. I would imagine, surprise entrant at 30. Or she starts at 1 and goes the distance. It's one or the other, but Becky Lynch, I believe, is going to win the WWE Women's 30-man Battle Royal. Also, bank on it. Different person. But, you can count on it if the Women's Royal Rumble match is last, right? Usually they do one at the top of the show, one at the bottom of the show, and they have the matches kind of fill in between. If the women are on last, Becky Lynch definitely wins. So that's my thoughts on the match. The final match that they announced as of this Wednesday, was Asuka and Charlotte versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. I don't see Asuka and Charlotte losing, but that's just a very inconsequential match. That's how I feel about it, and so that's how I feel about that match, and that's the entire card. Now, in larger scale WWE news, it was announced that WWE and NBC Universal have struck a deal, and it's huge. It's absolutely massive. WWE has reached an agreement to allow Peacock, the streaming service for NBC Universal, to be the exclusive rights holders to the WWE Network in the United States. So if you're outside the United States, you still have the WWE Network, no problem. If you're inside the United States, you now will have that rolled into Peacock, right? And Peacock is NBC Universal's new streaming service. I absolutely love it. I love the streaming services. I think that their content is fantastic. They have run into a little bit of that same problem that Disney Plus had in the beginning, where they've licensed out all of their content to different streaming platforms, and so they need those contracts to, basically expire before they, basically come back home. There are Fast and the Furious movies that are on Netflix, and, having those where, what is it, like the USA Network has, a bunch of the other Fast and the Furious movies. I don't know why I'm stuck on Fast and the Furious movies, but Fast and the Furious movies, it is. Um, and so they can't put them on Peacock yet because they have these exclusive TV deals and things like that. So we have to wait for those to expire for them to kind of all come home. Now, WWE is going to Peacock. Let me try that again. WWE going to Peacock, I think, is a huge step forward for WWE because I think it's going to bring more eyes onto the product than just the WWE network alone would, right? I have friends that don't really necessarily actively follow wrestling, right? They follow it in kind of the same way that I do now. Oh, Goldberg's at the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble's this weekend. Let's go watch it. Let's go do this. Well, they wouldn't go and watch it on their own on the WWE network, but they would if they had Peacock, right? And I'm not going to tell you that they're going to now become huge wrestling fans, but I think that it's going to get more eyes on the WWE product. I've seen a lot of people online think that this is a huge, negative for WWE, and to that I say, that's stupid, right? I think that that's absolutely stupid. You're going to a streaming service where you're basically paying, if you have the premium, so there's 3 levels of Peacock. There's free, there's premium, and then there's premium without ads, right? That's the model. And I want to say that the premium, which would get you the WWE Network, is $6. So at the very least, you get The Office and WWE Network. Now, I'm not an Office person, but I do know that that's a huge plus for people. So you get The Office and the WWE Network. That's for $6 a month, right? And that's better than the $6 and then the $9.99. Now, if you do the $9.99, you get more Office and WWE Network combined. So I think that it's a huge step in the right direction for WWE to, move forward as an entertainment company. They've certainly fallen out of the zeitgeist. They don't have the same type of market reach that they once had in the 90s, obviously, in the 80s, definitely, but certainly into the mid-2000s. They've definitely lost that with people like John Cena not being a part of it anymore, The Rock no longer being associated with them, and being a standalone movie star. I think that they've lost so much market share that it doesn't feel like standing on their own is something they can do anymore. You talk about the ratings, and now WWE doesn't necessarily care about the ratings, and that's a conversation for another day as well, but having them not be imprinted on young children anymore, because it was the traveling circus, right? Having WWE live events, Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, and even NXT shows coming into the city to, basically having a dad be like, oh, I used to love watching Hulk Hogan, or I used to love watching Stone Cold Steve Austin, I love watching John Cena, I'm going to take my kid and it's going to be a fun time. And you don't have that right now. You don't have that, and I'm not telling you that they lost all the 8-year-olds. They've been losing the 8-year-olds for a while, but I think that there's a good chance that they're going to get more eyes. They're going to be a little bit more involved with the younger generation and the zeitgeist being on a streaming service that people are on. It's great for NBC Universal because as the streaming wars continue, and you have Disney Plus and HBO Max and Paramount Plus coming soon, NBC Universal having their library and having their content be exclusive on their service is going to be huge. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how this shapes up over the next, 6 months, when I believe in March, because your first pay-per-view is going to be Fastlane on NBC, on Peacock. So it'll be interesting. And so now I want to hear from you, right? Are you excited for the Royal Rumble? Who do you think is going to win the men's Rumble, the women's Rumble? Because it's always really exciting to watch. Are you a casual viewer? Do you like watching that? What do you think about NBC and WWE kind of striking this partnership? Is it good? Is it bad? Did you have Peacock before, and now that the network is going over there, are you going to subscribe to Peacock? These are all things I want to know. So, tweet at me at the Eddie McCabe. Write a comment wherever comments are. Like, subscribe, all those fun things. Thank you very much for tuning in. I've been the Eddie McCabe, and I'll see you real soon.